What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of Podcast Named Deferred. My name is Tony. I am your host. Craig, our co-host, will not be with us this week. It looks like, unfortunately, he's been dealing with some technical issues. But we do have Ambrose with us, and Erica may pop in for a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and bring Ambrose in, and we're going to get things started here today. He pops in from time to time with me on Sports Report Monday nights. You can catch that on your the channel here that you're seeing this on Monday nights. Ambrose, how you doing this week, buddy?
So you know how like you go to a bar and you become friends with the bartender, and his name's like Bill, and you develop a relationship with him. Then one day Bill's not there. Now you have to deal with Tom, and Tom tries to be like Bill, but he's not really Bill. I'm Tom today.
Well,
I'm doing great, ready to talk some ball.
Well, you be Tom today. We don't need you to be Bill. We need you to be Tom. And we're glad to hear. We got a lot of ball to talk about, but we're going to do something I've been wanting to do on a show for a long time, but we haven't really done it. So now we're going ahead and we're doing that here, and we're going to go ahead and change it up a little bit. We're going to start with some highlights this week with your segment, Lumber and Gems.
All right, so here we go. San Francisco gentleman picked out the Easter Bunny, gave him a break coming up. He's sitting down. He's got this rabbit. I mean, look at him. Everyone's having a good time. Have you ever seen a rabbit that fat? Anyway, I mean, I don't know how, I know the therapy animals, and I don't know how you could be in any kind of a bad mood if you hold a rabbit that's that fat. All right, so speaking of speaking of the Bay Area, we are in Oakland. Brent Rooker, first home run of the season, takes it to the yard. He's got to take it to the yard because it takes a long time to find a bathroom in that stadium, and he does not want to be on base. So here we go. Brent Rooker on the board. A lot of people got on the board this week, so we are going to move for a second to a misplaced gem. Like everything else attached to the Athletics, I made a mistake today. So here we are. We have Tomoyuki Sagano, Baltimore, first win of the season, just lighting it up. He went 7 up, 7 down. He 5 1/3 inning, had a little hiccup at the end, but he did rack up his first career win. Things continue to look good in Baltimore. This young pitching staff, this guy, he's got some stuff. He doesn't really have the ability to go the distance, but if you could get 5 solid out of him and you got a good relief, you got a good bullpen. You're gonna go places with this guy. Moving to Florida, Miami to be specific, Matt Mervis bombs the Chop House in Atlanta. There it goes. See you later. That's his first home run as a Marlin. And just look, you're eating at the Chop House, you're having a nice steak, you think the Braves are going to turn it around. Matt Mervis says, no, the hell they're not. There it goes. First bomb of the day, first home run as a Marlin. You think Matt Mervis is done? Matt Mervis is not done. Here he comes again. Chop House winner ruined. There we go. All right, Matt Mervis. The Braves would, as a side note, get revenge. I think they put up like 10 runs on the Marlins the next day. So, I mean, it went back and forth in that series. But, yeah, beautiful swing by Matt Mervis there. And the woes for the Braves do continue, aside from that one bright spot with the 10-run game. All right, moving on to Cincinnati. Christian Encarnacion just murders this ball. We are looking at this. It just flies out. They could not find it. Off the backstop, off the batter's eye, my apologies, 451 feet, shades of Mickey Mantle down there in Cincinnati. These bats, man, they are just murdering pitching staffs. Pitching staffs got to figure out how to counteract these things. Moving to Minnesota, it was a comedy of errors for the Astros defense. Just watch this. Cue the Benny Hill music if we don't get copyrighted. Here we go. You think Altuve is going to pick it up? Nope, Altuve's not going to pick it up. There he goes. He drops that ball. Here's a run. We had the hit parade did not stop there. Next up, let's see who has it. Doubles were on sale in Minnesota. They would go on to hit 2 back-to-back RBI doubles. And this is a little bit of a long highlight, so let me just paint the picture for you. Houston played like a bunch of little leaguers. They could not field. They could not throw. And it was like watching those Looney Tunes cartoons where the guys were just doing the ramba around the bag, just hitting home run after home run until Bugs Bunny showed up with the cape. Bugs Bunny was not there today. They had a really, really rough time. So we had Houston just, oh, God, this is just painful to watch. Home run. Beautiful swing there. Round the bases. Next person's going to do it too. And then a series of errors just comes through. Here we go. Yep, you missed it, bud. There goes another run. Round the corner, hit the bag, grab the plate. There we go. All right, another double. This is just, stop. They're already dead. They're already dead. Just leave it. Is there a slaughter rule in Major League Baseball? After today, Rob Manfred might introduce that notion. All right, and here's an easy play. Oh, trying to be Jeter? You're not Jeter. You are not Jeter. Take that ball back and throw it right. Oh, man. Yeah, so a 6-run inning for the Twins. They explode offensively. They just take Houston to the woodshed. And it was just a really bad day to be an Astro there. So let's move on after this. Just look at that throw, man. That was just so bad. Only one man can make that throw. It's not him. Moving on, we have Wyatt Langford going yard in Texas. Getting on. It was not a very good week for Tampa Bay. They just got spanked. Wyatt Langford, again, look at the power. Just wills that ball out. Home run after home run this week. And, good swing for Langford. Rangers have rebounded after that Boston series. Bobby Witt Jr. says, hey, you're all having some fun. I want to be part of the game, too. Let's do this. First home run on the board in the K. Royals wearing those sweet throwback uniforms. And Bobby Witt
love those uniforms.
Takes it to the yard. All right. After Witt Jr. goes, we're going to talk about Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger is sitting on the bench right now. He is hurt. He's not having a very good start to the season. So who do we have? Who the hell is Trent Grisham? I'll show you who Trent Grisham is. Cody who? Grisham goes yard. You might think that's a mistake. Just watch it out. Watch him run the bases. Here he goes. Grisham just taking his time. Got that nice natural swing. And there's the replay from that angle. Number 12. I think the last guy to wear that was Tony Womack, so that's already an upgrade. All right. You think Grisham's done? He's not done. He's got the stash. He's going back to the Bruisers. Another one. There we go. This time going to right field. Bam. And New York taking Pittsburgh to the woodshed. Paul Skeens didn't care. He's out hanging out with Livy Dunn, drinking up the nightlife. So here we go. And in the words of the immortal Billy Mays, but wait, there's more. After this one, we'll see the third and final home run. Cody Bellinger can rest easy. Here we go. One more on the curtain call circuit. And there we go back.
Oh, wow.
Field. And Trent Grisham is making the most out of every opportunity he has to fill in for Bellinger, and I think he's going to earn himself a permanent spot on this roster if he keeps swinging the bat like that.
I mean, it's something you have to
use some bats. They're having a really hard time. All right, moving on to Boston after this. Oh, wait, there's another one. I forgot there was another one again to left field. Here we go. Wow. Grisham is just killing it. So
after this swing is so simple.
We're going to go from the Bronx to Boston. After this, we're going to talk a little bit about Christian Campbell. Christian Campbell, young kid, really, really on the upswing of his career. I think Boston has a really good player there. But let's congratulate Trent Grisham for making us forget about Cody Bellinger for at least one game. All right, so here we go. First hit on the board for Christian Campbell. This is a great moment for any MLB player. This is a controversial play because some people say it should have been an error. Not an error. It's a hit, and here's why. Watch on the replay. One, he's really happy. He's stunned. He doesn't even know he got the hit. I think he's just sitting on first base. Mom and dad are happy. Everybody's having a good time. And this is a start for a good career for Mr. Campbell. When you go to the replay, I'm waiting for the replay to come through. They got the ball. They're going to put it in the bag. He's got a memento for life. Hey, Mom and Dad, can I see the replay, please? All right. And he still looks like a deer in headlights. Look at this kid. He's not
he looks
even
confused.
Like 20 years old. He's like, what did I just do? Okay, now here we go. He hits the ball, and this is why it's not an error. Oh, they're showing him go to first. So it was ruled a hit. Here's the angle I wanted to show you. He hits the ball. He moves in. Now, the reason why it's not an error is because he wouldn't have been able to field it from the angle of which he was playing. Now, if he was playing properly and he booted the ball, then it would have been an error, and then he wouldn't have had his first hit. But because he was playing off to the close to the bag, he moved in at a weird angle. The ball got past him. I don't even think he touched it. All right, now, Christian Campbell again. First hit is great. First home run, even better. Down in Charm City. Hit the charm off the ball there. And the Orioles are, they're seesawing right now. I mean, pitching staff's good, but they're also kind of bad sometimes. Here we go. And he's eating his cereal. Love that. Love that. Young kid eating it all up. You think he's done? He's not done. Second career home run coming up for Christian Campbell, again to Tampa. I mean, I think at this point I could hit a home run in Tampa. Here we go. They're at Yankee Stadium Junior. Christian Campbell picks up the bat. Here comes the payoff. And lights out. Tampa Bay is looking every bit as good as they did in 1998. Christian Campbell is going off the wall. Even though he's playing for Boston, I can't help but feel happy for this kid. This kid is on top of the world right now, and I just hope he keeps that swing. I hope he doesn't let the coaches interfere. Now to Rafael Devers. Rafael, right?
Yeah.
All right. Now, Raf Devers had a really hard start to the season, but he comes in clutch in Baltimore once again. Hits one off the Giants scoreboard. Here we go. He comes in, racks up a double, first hit of the season for Mr. Devers, and he knocks in a run to boot. So Rafael Devers has gotten the kinks out. I think you said he went yard today, right?
He went yard today. Actually, I think he went yard twice today. Yeah, he's getting his back under him. He's good.
All right. So sometimes it takes sometimes you got to fight through the rough patches, but it looks like Devers is back on the mend, and I think we might have to worry about Boston if you're an NL East fan. All right. We're moving on to Gems now. Here we go. My editing is kind of off. Sorry about that, guys. Time for the Gems. Here we go. All right. Like I said, you involve the A's, I make a mistake. Here we go. 7 up, 7 down for Tomoyuki. Making the Royals look silly. It's kind of hard to do right now, but he did it. And he's the one bright spot in the Orioles rotation if you have been watching this reel, because they are having some problems. So here we go. Silly. Just sit down. You're done. And he goes 5 1/3 and racks up his first career win. Moving on. The Phillies, normally a formidable lineup, but not to Roki Sasaki. He shuts down the Phillies lineup. First, it's Bryce Harper. Just that splitter is nasty. It's filthy. He is just wrecking it. Everybody had trouble with it. Yep. Sit down. And there I think he struck out Kyle Schwarber, but that's like the free space of bingo. So, I mean, but like, just look at the drop on that. It just goes off the table. You cannot pick that up. And, Erica, if you're watching, I think you got a lot to be happy about if you're a Dodger fan right now. All right. We have another highlight reel coming up after we watch this domination of an otherwise from look at him. He's just like, yeah, you knew. You knew it was going to happen.
Good for him to get his feet under him in his second start after
he
struggled.
Predetermined. Do you think like
Whoa, wow.
Kyle Schwarber has like a quota for strikeouts?
He's got it.
I struck out more than Tony Gwynn did in his whole career in 6 months. All right, here we go. The big one, Zach Gallen, making the Yankees look silly. 13 Ks. He goes to the Bronx. He does not care. It's cold. It's nasty. Spring baseball in New York is miserable. It did not seem to faze Zach Gallen. Just racks it up. Ooh, gives Judge the chin music, but he moves the bat the wrong direction. 13 strikeouts. Nuts. He's looking like a Cy Young competitor. It's early in the season to say, but if he keeps this stuff up, no one strikes Aaron Judge out twice. Not this early in the season. You got to wait till the playoffs for that. Here we go now, and James Woods. Home run? Not if you're James Woods. He took that ball back down to Diggstown. Highway robbery. There we go. Flip it. One of the bright spots for the Nationals. Looks like it's going to be a rough season for them, but if they can hold on to kids like this, they're probably going to have a bright future ahead of them, probably 2 or 3.
Yeah, that's a good future piece.
All right, and last but not least, how do you win 3 consecutive Gold Gloves? This is how. This ball looks like it's going to be a cue shot to the corner. Not if you're Ian Happen. Look at this play. Look at this play. He just... that is a double if anyone else is playing left field. He puts it all on the line. This is why the man racks up Gold Gloves. And that's Lumber and Gems for this week. Thank you, guys.
Man, Ian Happ is so damn talented. I cannot begin to rave about how good of an outfielder he is, how good of an athlete he is. Like, if you were to look at Ian Happ is one of those players that if you look at athletes and you're trying to find an athlete that's actually a good example for your kid, regardless of the team or the sport, Ian Happ fits the bill. He's an athlete. He does a lot for his community. He invests in his community, and he's very much a team-centric guy. So when you think about the things that the traits that you want out of an athlete that's going to be at the pro level, that is somebody that your kid can look up to, Ian Happ is definitely one of those guys, because between the talent, the business acumen, the way that he carries himself, he's worth the appreciation every step.
Yeah, I kind of want to talk about that, because how come a player of his talent, I mean, Chicago doesn't really count. How come he hasn't ended up on like a big team? How come he hasn't ended up on the big 3? Is that just he likes being where he is, or does he?
Yeah. He's got a business, a Chicago-based business that he is from everything that I understand from talking to the friends that I have that are Cubs fans, that he's very involved in the business and the community, because the Cubs have gone to him and said, "What do you want?"
Does he go to underprivileged communities and teach the White Sox how to play baseball?
I don't think he's that much of a giving player, but I mean, he at least gives the people in Chicago somebody to look up to, because it sure ain't coming out of the South Side. But like when I went down to the last time I went to see the Cubs in spring training, the players would come from their training facility over to the actual game field, because it was at Sloan Park where the Cubs have their home training games. And as the players walk by, there's a spot where you can stand there. You get athletes. Like I don't know if you've seen it. That's where I got the picture of me and Ryan Dempster, because he was in the booth for some of their spring training games that year, calling the game. And like he walked by, I was in one of my Red Sox jerseys, and he and I stopped and talked for a second. He was a real good guy. But Hap walked by. He took pictures with everybody. I've got pictures with I've got a picture with him, and he gave me crap about being in a Red Sox jersey. And I said, well, they won't call you guys the Blue Sox, so it just doesn't make sense. And like he was laughing, like just organically one of the nicest guys to talk to.
I mean, and there's something to be said, because that type of player isn't around anymore. Because I remember they interviewed, and George Brett and Tony Gwynn both said roughly the same thing when they were asked, and they said that, you know, why do you continue to be with these teams? You could have gone to a winner. You could have gotten a ring. And they both, in a nutshell, to paraphrase them, said, we like where we are. We like getting to know the fans. We like being part of the community. We like when a kid buys a pack of baseball cards, they see that I've been in the same place for the last, but Jesus Christ, what did Brett play for? Like 30 years?
20. Yeah.
He won a batting title in 3 separate decades, so he was in there for a while. And they both just liked like Tony Gwynn. You mentioned Tony Gwynn's name in San Diego and people like Neil at the altar.
Mm-hmm.
And and players aren't like that anymore.
I think that there are players that are still like that, but I think that in the social media age, it's not as required, because if you have like with what Ian Happ does, yes, Ian Happ goes into the other underprivileged areas and does stuff, good ambassador for baseball. But like he's got an entire social media presence. He's got a T-shirt business, and a coffee company, and he's using social media for those things, and it's so to a bit of self promotion, but mostly he has more of that servant mindset, but you see some guys that it's all about the social media presence. But that stems from their generation, because the guys that came up in my generation or your generation, the social media was more about promoting the brand. With the younger generation, it's about promoting your brand.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it gets lost, and then have these separations between the players and the league when it comes down to like negotiations for CBAs and the things that are going on in the game. And I think that the league kind of created that separation. Well, because you don't see as much in the NFL.
It's kind of like there's an, I don't think it's on Max, because it's like, it wasn't a real popular documentary, but there's a series that HBO did called When It Was a Game. And I have them on DVD somewhere, and it was a documentary, and all three things went. It was kind of like Baseball by Ken Burns, but condensed. And the actor Liev Schreiber narrated it, and they said, they fought for free agency, and it was great for the players, but what's great for the players isn't necessarily good for the fans.
Yeah.
Because and there's no real happy balance. You either have miserable players that are confined to an organization, or you have fans that watch their players leave because a bigger team has a better offer. And
I look at it like this. The free agency is also a benefit to teams, because there are times when a team needs a way to get out of a deal. And free agency offers that in a way that contracts before didn't.
Yeah, but nothing was more friendly to owners than the reserve clause.
Right. And there does have to be, because of the fact that the players are the product, they do have to have some hand in the till, and some seat at the table. But the largest part of the divide between the league, the players, is because of the league, because of the way that the league handles situations. Well, like the league starts thumbing your nose at the steroid users and putting pressure on the steroid users to not be welcomed back into the game, not get their shot at the Hall. But Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame. How many managers do we have in the Hall of Fame that benefited from the steroid era? The managers, it was fine. The players were the ones that saw the punishment.
I mean, you can't tell me Tony La Russa didn't look at Jose Canseco and be like, man, you're really putting the time in at the gym, bud. Good job.
Yeah, of course they did. and that's exactly my point, though, is the way that the league has chosen in the past to handle these situations largely made the player the scapegoat. In fact, it was actually the fact that they did the opposite was one of the things that shocked me about the sign stealing investigation when they were investigating teams for sign stealing in the 2017 season.
Which has always been a thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, nobody was surprised that this was happening. Nobody actually knows baseball was surprised. Nobody that's played
that
baseball
goes all the way back to Ty Cobb when you had the little, like, the scoreboards where you put the numbers up and someone would leave something blank or put something in and you'd know which pitch was coming. Like,
right.
You know.
Like, there was so many pieces to it. But for the stuff that was – for the intricate systems that were being done with the cameras and things of that nature, they made the management serve the punishment, not the players. Because the management knew what was going on, even if the players orchestrated it, the management knew what was going on and allowed it to happen, and that was their justification. That's why that was really why those in the Houston leadership saw a punishment. And had they not been okay with it, and had they been trying to prevent what the players were doing, then the players would have done it. But because management knew, they had the managers take the fall, because otherwise you're suspending a whole team, part of it. But also.
Here's my problem with the Houston situation. Everyone talks about, like, Houston stealing signs, and in my opinion, and it's an unpopular opinion, you're probably not going to see eye to eye with me on this. Cheating has always been a part of baseball.
Yeah.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Exactly.
And everyone's talking about Houston. People forget Houston lost that World Series. Houston lost in Houston, all 4 games. They lost that World Series. So it wasn't foolproof.
It wasn't foolproof, first of all. Second of all, you can know what pitch is coming, exactly what pitch, where, what speed, and you still have to have the coordination to hit the damn ball. And even a seasoned veteran out of 10 tries, knowing where the pitch is coming, is still only going to hit it once or twice. So there's so many things. And the other piece of it that frustrates me is half of the league was found to have had some type of sign stealing scandal in that league, in that season when everything was investigated. Half the league.
Mean, you can't tell me, even though I'm a Yankees fan, you can't tell me that they weren't in on that. They didn't buy.
I know Boston was.
Boston was. You can't tell me, though, that Brian Cashman didn't buy some sort of tech and be like, figure out what you can do with this. You know, I mean,
there's it is what I mean. It's professional sports, and you are not you are penalized for getting caught, not for cheating.
I think the other thing, though, is the owners, and I've never. Let me try to rephrase that. Let me try to phrase this correctly. I've never seen in any other sport an environment where the owners have such a disdain for the players.
That's my biggest issue.
It's bizarre. Like that strike in 94, when Reinsdorf actually had power and people listened to him, he spearheaded that. That strike should have ended. We should have had a World Series. He would not relent. He would not give an inch in those agreements.
And that strike also screwed the Braves, because I'm pretty sure the Braves are the World Series champions that year.
No,
they had the best team in baseball. I'm sorry, the Expos. Yeah, it was the Expos. It was you're right. I was just talking about that with a friend of mine, and I think the Braves also would have been in contention, but I think that was the Expos' year to win a World Series. And I think if the Expos win a World Series, they ultimately don't leave Montreal and become the Nationals.
Bobby Cox did not want his streak to end, so he just sabotaged everything.
But there was, the league allows things only so much as it benefits them. Like when we look at the Torpedo Bats, you know, the first question is always, were they legal? Well, the league already knew about them before this year. Wasn't even the first season that the Torpedo Bats have been utilized, but they kept it quiet so that when it was going to be something that was talked about, it was something that would drive attention to the game. It was about marketing, because players have been using Torpedo Bats intermittently for the last couple of years, testing them out, because the rules are vague enough in bat shape that they've known all along it wasn't a problem. They've had them on every team. Everybody knew they were in existence. It's just because the Yankees had so many players doing it and they got so many runs that they decided to attribute it to the bat and not the fact that that is, on paper, one of the best hitting lineups in baseball history.
Here's the thing about torpedo bats, because the physics of the bat is they pretty much took the meat of the bat from the top and pushed it down to the middle, right?
Essentially, yeah.
Ostensibly.
Essentially. So with it, you've got, nope, can't use that as an example. Okay, we'll use this. So you've got your regular bat, and let's say up here is, this is your the tip of the bat, normally your wettest point. What they figured out was when they looked at your swing, where were you more often actually making contact? And then what they figured out was, because of the way the rules on bats are, is they can move that meaty point to wherever you're more often making contact, which means that you're getting more hardwood on the ball where you normally make contact, so you're more likely to put it into play. That's why the league's okay with these bats, because it's more offense.
And here's my question, because this goes back to your managers versus players gripe. So it's about the shape of the bat, the physics of the bat. What's the difference between modifying it so you're making the middle of the bat wider and corking it?
You're changing where material is located. You're not altering the structure of the bat, as far as like the integrity, like, because it's the and so one of the things you remember, like when everybody talks about Babe Ruth corking his bats. When Babe Ruth was corking his bats, it wasn't illegal. He's one of the reasons it ended up becoming one. Like there was bats that, like, and obviously like through the bulk of his career, but like towards the end, there was bats that he used and ended up being one of the reasons why they would go back and later make it to where you couldn't do what was being done. It wasn't just him by any stretch, but there was bats that he used that were corked, and it brought attention to it more than anything, even though he had already been using the fine bats before. But with a corked bat, you're changing the material, and part of it is that you have to hollow part of it out, and it has to be a solid piece. That's why you don't have anything where they do almost like a pool cue. Because with pool cues, you can strengthen it from all the abuse that you take when you have to do breaks and things like that, because you have a steel rod in the center and it's typically two pieces that come apart.
Yeah.
In theory, you could make a stronger bat in Major League Baseball using the same concept, but you can't do that because it has to be one solid piece, and it's not solid if you're hollowing it out to cork it. So that's where the violation comes in.
I think the issue with the bats, though, because like you said, they're breaking.
They are breaking it a lot.
I think if they're going to break like this, it's got to be mandated that they're made out of ash, because these bats are almost certainly made out of maple. Maple breaks like that. Ash splinters. Maple splits.
And it's there are a lot of safety risks with these bats. And this is my question, because we it appears that part of the reason that Giancarlo Stanton's been dealing with injury issues is because of it. Okay, so and I'm very much as much as say.
Sorry to cut you off. Half of me wants to say he doesn't want to admit that he's getting old.
And I'm not saying that it's completely, because Giancarlo Stanton's had injury issues. So let's not stand under the assumption that it's all his use last year of a torpedo bat that put him in a position, because it's not. But let's humor for a moment that there is at least some connection to his issues with the use of the torpedo bat. That leads me to be concerned that maybe we shouldn't be using it for player safety, because we already have enough issues with players going down. We saw the White Sox lose 6 pitchers during spring training. 6 guys that should be starting in the league aren't for the year. And we've seen pitchers drop all over. We just saw Blake Snell hit the 15-day IL. And that's just off of pitchers. Cattell Martin is out with a hammy. We've got, we're seeing all of these issues pop up all over the league. We got to try and take care of these players because that's, if we're going to try and keep baseball from dying, we got to take care of those guys.
Well, I think with the pitchers, it's definitely a training issue because they're not trained to actually pitch anymore. They're just trained to hurl the ball. You have to have that arsenal of pitchers that takes the stress off your elbow and takes the stress off your shoulder. You have to have that changeup. You have to have a slow pitch. The normal ratio should be like 1 middle speed pitch, 2 slow pitches, 2 fast pitches. If you have 5 in your repertoire, and
that's reasonable. I think that's reasonable. My thing is, we've got guys ramping up to be able to throw at velocity in March and April, which means they're starting to warm up in December and January. If I'm an MLB team, I don't want my pitchers actually starting to ramp up until about a week before pitchers and catchers report. I want you still going through your ramp up during spring training. I don't want to see 90 to 100 miles per hour until closer to the end of spring training, if I'm seeing it at all. I don't want you intentionally throwing that top end gas in a spring training game at all, because it doesn't matter. It's spring training. I just want to know that you can locate when we start the season. The speed will come as you ramp your arm up and get that power in it. You shouldn't be starting that early.
And what shocks me about it is in the winter meetings, like the owners have blinders on. Because if I owned a team and we had these winter meetings, I'd be like, has no one learned anything from Steven Strasburg? Like, has no one? Are we just going to keep training these guys this way? Because we knocked him right the hell out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. This is the frustrating piece and I speak from experience of having spent so much time working with pitchers. You can't, what the pitchers have to do physically with the throwing of the ball, the way that they do it, at the speeds that they do it, and the methods that they do it. The human body is not designed to go through that much wear and tear in that fashion. Pitching does a lot of damage to the ligaments and muscles in your body.
And I think what happened was Randy Johnson and Nolan Ryan dominated. Nolan Ryan dominated the 80s and passed the torch to Randy Johnson in a sense. Like he dominated the 70s and 80s and retired. Johnson took over that mantle, but Nolan Ryan will be the first person to tell you, I'm an anomaly. Like, I was born to do this. My body is not like other people's bodies.
Right.
And you can't train people to throw like that. It's not healthy.
No.
Like, Paul Skeens, like, how long is Paul Skeens realistically going to have before he flames out?
I mean, it kind of depends on if he's another anomaly. And that's what that's the unknown about Paul Skeens. Is he going to blow his arm out in 5 years? Or are we looking at the next Nolan Ryan / Randy Johnson? Because unfortunately for a guy like Paul Skeens, those are the two avenues that we're looking at. There's not really a middle ground in that, because if a good pitching coach would be telling him, I don't want you throwing above 98 miles an hour more than 5 pitches a game. 10 if absolutely necessary, because it's a nothing duel. And it's tight. Later, save some of those for later in the game. If you're not throwing more than 6 innings, you shouldn't be throwing more than 5 of those pitches at 100 or more. Because otherwise, he's not going to have an arm left when he signs his new deal. He'll already have taken Tommy John once. And that's going to impact how he looks.
Did he have a Tommy John?
Not yet. But what I'm saying is, like, it's going to happen. And they need to take better care of his arm, because clearly they're not going to do enough as an organization to build around him to get that kid a ring. So you're going to have to trade him off, and you need to get the most that you can out of it, because you're going to be trading him to Boston or LA or New York or Arizona and somebody or San Francisco, somebody that's going to want to compete and is going to build around him as their ace. And
yeah, I mean, I know he's from the West Coast, but I know Livy Dunn's from Jersey. So if he wants to make her happy, he'll probably go to Boston or New York.
Yeah, right. If he stays East Coast, I would expect him to end up in Boston or New York. And honestly, I would say because of Livy's connection to the city, I would say it's probably New York first and Boston second. As much as I would like to wish otherwise, for obvious reasons, realistically, I think that Paul Skeens is a New York Yankee before he's Boston Red Sox.
But I think they should be teaching. They should be emphasizing control. Like, take a look at Greg Maddux, one of the greatest pitchers of our generation. I don't think Greg Maddux threw over 90 more than 5 times in his career.
He didn't have to.
Yeah, and
it's there is true value in knowing how to locate what you're throwing before you touch on velocity. Because like if that game that we talked about when you were going through the highlights was Zach Gallen against the Yankees, I watched every pitch of that game because my wife is a Diamondbacks fan, and the Zach Gallen also pitched their opening day game, and it was against, I believe it was against the Padres. Maybe I'm wrong, but he pitched in their opening day game, and he wasn't locating well. He got shelled. Diamondbacks lost that game. That game against the Yankees, as you mentioned, he was dotting it. And even though he doesn't throw 98 plus like Paul Skeens does, he's kind of those who was like 94 to 97 type guys on the top end of his stuff. His regular, like his splitter, I think is like 91, 92, somewhere in there. Like he's more normal for what you expect a starting pitcher to be in Major League Baseball. But when he's on because he's locating those pitches, and it's hard to hit him when he's locating.
And with all these pitchers getting hurt, though, I have to ask, like, how long before like Trevor Bauer shows up wearing like the Groucho Marx glasses and like the nose? And it's just like, no, I'm not Trevor Bauer. My name's Matt.
I think I really think that if the Chicago White Sox get any lower, I think the White Sox are going to be the team that will call Trevor Bauer. And I think that honestly, what I think is going to happen is I think that there's some of the owners that are going to decide that if you're going to be fucking around with one of the charter teams, excuse my language, of the American League and not running it correctly, we're going to let you take the brunt of the Bauer rage while we see if he can actually pitch in the majors again. And then we'll take him off your hands and you'll get some kind of compensation for that to help with an actual rebuild when you sell the freaking team.
I honestly think that would be like a great like Nike commercial. Like if you thought he was out and it just shows him pitching. It's like, but the legend will return. And then it's like Kenny Powers.
He's like, hard thing is he's a great pitcher, but he's an asshole. And I think that's where the Kenny Powers analogy to Trevor Bauer make me laugh.
I've never seen art. I've never seen life imitate art this perfectly. Like, have you seen the highlights? I've got to pull up the highlights for one of the slower talking days where he is just roasting like the Mexican League.
That's the hard thing is like there's videos that he does because like I mean I follow his socials to see what he's up to and to see like because like if there's a team that's going to call him, like he's going to be talking about it. Because he's kind of a dick enough that like there's going to be things that he's going to say or do or subtly hint at, there being conversations.
I think he goes. So I'm interested to see A's.
Yeah, I think the A's would actually be harder pressed to do it than the White Sox would. I still think the White Sox are my favorite right now for it. But
Manfred would be like, "Enjoy your dugout without a bathroom, Bauer."
Not knocking out any girls in that bathroom. But I just that there's so much to to Bauer, because like you see that he still has it as a pitcher when you're watching the videos that he posts. But when he's providing that commentary, like you can just see how much of an asshole he really is. And I get why players don't like to be around him. Like it takes a lot. You have to just be focused on the end result to want to play with a guy like that, because it can be a distraction.
If I was his agent, if he even has an agent anymore, I can't imagine an agent that would want to deal with him.
Oh, he does. His agent's actually a female agent. What's crazy is she actually like, I'll see if I can. I'll send you. I'll send you a picture. Oh, I will send you a picture through Messenger, because the first time I saw a picture of this woman, the first thought I had was dominatrix. Like I know that sounds like a horrible thing to say, but like that was the first thought that I had.
I mean, but seriously, that's like walking into a bank, asking to see the manager, and like Babyface Nelson comes out. But like, if his agent should be like, don't want it so bad. Shut up. Shut up for 3 months. Someone will call you if you shut up. Shut your mouth for 3 months and you'll get a call. It's like that
are woefully optimistic.
It's like that scene in Predator where the Predator goes to get Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold's like, "Come and catch me, I'm right here." And the Predator's like, "Well, this is clearly a trap," and just walks away. It's like, don't do that.
Yeah. You know, talking about injuries around the league, man, pitchers injured. We saw Nestor, the Brewers DP pitcher, Nestor Cortez, he's on the 15-day IL.
Which is weird because he's not a high velocity pitcher.
He was reporting elbow soreness after that that game against the Yankees.
It's a left elbow strain, so he'll probably be back.
He's on the 15-day IL, so I don't think it's anything. At this point, I don't think it's anything where he's like out for the year. But at the same time, after you get shelled by your former team like that in such a bad way, giving up 3 home runs in back-to-back pitches, like that's
like moving and coming back.
They've got to just be giving it time to calm down and give him time to get right. Because
because that's like moving and then coming back to like your old school to visit, and like your best friend gives you a wedgie.
Yeah.
Like it was so bad. It was
he got absolutely shelled by the Yankees. And I'm honestly, I'm not surprised, because I think that's exactly what I said. They're giving it time to calm down, giving him just, time to go. All right, go back to the lab. Let's pitch a couple of BPs, get your confidence back around you. Maybe we'll have some guys that are coming up, or that we want to do some live BPs with, and we'll get you comfortable again, and then we'll put you back out there. Because you can't have that liability.
It's also though, like, I watched the highlights of that game, and at first I thought it was kind of a what's it called? Situation where you lose it, like the poor kid in Washington, Drew Storen.
Okay.
Home run, and you can't get it back. And then it was like, no, like, because he's usually really relaxed on the mound, and he couldn't get his composure. So I wonder if he was playing that game hurt. Because usually when he gets a home run, he'd just be like, okay, let me give me the ball, let me throw again. And like, but he wasn't doing that. He looked like he was in distress.
He looked it looked like he was rattled, honestly. Like, and that's something that you don't see normally, because it was pretty hard to rattle him in New York. So to now be facing his former team and getting rattled, I don't know why he would be. I don't know, maybe there's something else. Maybe he was playing hurt that whole time and he shouldn't have even pitched in that game. I think that he's going to need to redeem himself at some point for that one, with some kind of, like, I'm talking like we're going to have to see like a one-hit complete game, something astronomical to balance it out, because 9 hits in 2 innings for 4 home runs.
3 home runs on the first 3 pitches.
Well, it was 3 home runs in the first inning off of back-to-back pitches, but it wasn't the first 3 pitches. It was, because one of them was a 2-run shot. Somebody was on base. Like it was. Oh, right. It was just a lot of like different offense, along with the fact that those 3 pitches were home runs,
But looking at things from Nestor Cortez's point of view, is an injury to him puts him, in my opinion, and feel free to disagree with me, it puts a pitcher of his caliber between a rock and a hard place, because he's ultimately a replaceable guy. He's not a stud. He's not an ace. And if you say you're hurt on opening day, you run the risk of the team saying, all right, we got to find a replacement for this guy. He's not going to last the season. And
yes and no. I would say it depends on what you're trying to do as a team. I think a team like the Brewers, he may not have as much of an impact. And I know you're going to think I'm a little crazy, but I think he would be better fit in Baltimore than he would with the Brewers. And that's because he does have experience in October, which is something that the Brewers aren't going to need this year, because they're not going to be playing baseball in October except for their end of regular season.
They're not even playing baseball now.
But that's my point. But you can actually get value out of a guy like Nestor Cortez, because I'll joking aside, because he used to be New York Yankee, I don't think he's a bad pitcher.
I don't either, but what I'm trying to say is there's like Nestor Cortez, who's a solid, reliable pitcher, and then let's say if he was still in the league, so I'm losing a name, I can't find a name. Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens could get away with saying I'm hurt. You're not gonna scratch Roger Clemens off the roster. Nestor Cortez is kind of like Wally Pipp.
Yeah,
remember him? No one really does.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. They question whether or not they need him, and honestly, but like I said, I think that I actually don't think they do need him. I think that they need to be focusing on their younger pitchers, and I think that Nestor should be with a team like Arizona or Baltimore that's a fringe playoff team that could use somebody with experience to kind of push them in the right, help elevate them in the right direction. Like, honestly, Nestor Cortez as the 4th or 5th starter in Arizona's rotation, I think puts them that much closer to at least making sure they have solidified a wild card slot. Same with Baltimore, because I don't think the American League is going to be as competitive for wild card slots as people think. I think it's going to be the teams that that it should be, like whoever doesn't win out of the division out of Boston and New York is going to be the first playoff seed. We're going to see Baltimore in the playoffs. And then
there's going to be some dark horse. There's going to be some team that comes out of nowhere. There always is.
There's going to be some type of team in the AL that's going to be a dark horse, and maybe it's whoever doesn't win the division out of Cleveland and Kansas City in the Central. Because in the West, outside of the Astros, who's it going to be? The Mariners don't have an offense. They have great pitching and no offense.
Texas can surprise. If Texas gets hot at the right time, maybe they can. I
watched a lot of that. I watched a lot of Texas when they were going up against Baltimore. Texas is going to be a very streaky team. They are deceptive this year, and I say that with all honesty. It's not because, yes, they handled Boston quite well, but when you look at, out of the 10 games to start the season, here's the thing about Texas that shows you how deceptive their success is. Even though they're 8-2 to start the season, 6-1 at home, 2-1 on the road, they have the 3rd run scored in their division. The run differential is actually a -1 as well. So they've given up more runs to start the season than they've allowed in their last 10 games. If that holds on through an entire season, they're not going to win that division. They're not going to be, I mean, they could be a wild card slot, maybe that bottom rung, depending on what everybody else does. I just don't see it. They're just, unless the rest of the division is so bad that they win it, I don't see Texas being competitive. The numbers aren't there for me.
In the Central, I think it looks like it's going to be the Twins.
I
mean, what?
I actually, with the way that this season has started, I like the Tigers more than I do the Twins, but I still think that's Kansas City's division to win. And I still think that Cleveland can vie for it. Cleveland's going to
unless it's like that one weird season that happens like every 5 years where Cleveland's like, yeah, we're here too. And they win, like, for whatever reason, the Cleveland Bridge Turtles are in the playoffs, and everyone's like, I forgot Cleveland even had a team.
Well, technically that was last year for this rotation, but I don't think that, because they got better in a couple of ways by subtraction. Like, Josh Naylor is a great first baseman as long as he doesn't have to run. And like Arizona's struggling with it because like his bat is kind of starting to move, but he's not. There's a couple of hits against New York that should have been doubles or triples and were a single.
Is Josh Naylor the fat guy who always wears his helmet weird? Yeah, and his helmet's always falling off?
His helmet, he cannot, he has a harder time getting through an at bat without his helmet falling off while he's swinging than Giancarlo Stanton has of not being on his knees as he strikes out.
I never understood that. It's the ugliest stance in baseball, and
it is. And that's, again, I respect them both for their ability to be professional athletes, but good God. And, but I think that Cleveland is, I still think Kansas City wins that division because Kansas City has just overwhelmingly improved from last season to this season. And I think that whereas Cleveland did get better in some areas by subtraction, I do also think that they still have some work to do. So I still think that Kansas City is going to be the one that wins the Central. I am even trying to not be, biased. Right now I like Boston for the East, and then I think that you're going to see
Toronto
Houston
might sneak up.
And that's the other thing is a lot of people have written Toronto off, and that's where I think that third wild card slot could go, because if you see out of Boston and New York, whoever wins the division, because Toronto's not winning the division, that part I'm not going to give on.
Oh
Toronto's
yeah, that's my dream.
But if you have, let's say Boston wins the division, you get the Yankees get that first playoff slot, they're the first wild card slot. And then
I don't see it in Baltimore this year. I don't think they have. I don't think they have it together.
And this is their pitching is their weakness, because like I said, if they had Nestor Cortez, they would be better off right now, because their starting rotation: Zach Eflin, Grayson Rodriguez, who's on 15-day IL, Charlie Morton, who is completely washed. Dean Kramer, Tomoyaki Sagano, who you just talked about, the rookie. I mean, what are you going to do? See if you can get Sir Anthony Dominguez to be your fifth stretch starter and try to give you 3 to 4 innings out of the bullpen start and hope for the best. They need to trade they need at least 2 more starters before they're going to make any kind of a deep run. But if they acquire that, then I think that we could see Baltimore as a wild card team. But I have a feeling that Jackson Holiday is going to spend another October in Cancun and not in the postseason.
And that's what Baltimore is. I don't even want to kick them because they always find a way to take young talent and squander it. And it's not even that it's something unique to the Orioles organization, where it's not like they squander it with the Athletics, where the guy's like, okay, this organization sucks, I'm going to go play for the Dodgers. they squander it in a sense where like they crush the guy's soul and he just doesn't want to pick a baseball up anymore.
Yeah. No. And the Pirates have done that with a lot of talent too. That's why I'm so concerned about Paul Skeens. But with Baltimore, like we started over the last couple of years, we've started to see Baltimore like actually perform as a team, and talent is sticking around and talent wants to be there. So that's why I have some hope for Baltimore, but they have to shore up their pitching a little bit more. Like I said, maybe Baltimore is the one that bites the bullet and calls Trevor Bauer, because Baltimore is not a team that's going to have a huge impact on the league's brand. And Baltimore is one of those teams that the press on their name of Trevor Bauer being there would actually be helpful to them. I
think the only difference between Baltimore and Pittsburgh is Baltimore at least respects their organization. The owner of the Pirates has no sense of.
That's the other topics we're going to talk about today. That the owner of the Pirates, without talking to the Clemente family, without making anything known about it, without talking about other options or things that they could do, just removed the tribute to Roberto Clemente off of the right field wall. The wall was exactly 21 feet high for Clemente. His number was 21, and it is now a spot that they sold an ad for, and zero communication. Clemente family is pissed off. Their son released a statement. The Pirates actually had to release a statement going, "Oh yeah, no, we didn't talk to the family first, but yeah, we did it." Like they're not, yeah.
Which to me is
a horrible situation. Yeah,
it's abhorrent. It's like changing the name of McCovey Cove, or taking away Babe Ruth's number 3 and putting like a Target advertisement there in Yankee Stadium.
Right, exactly. Or all of the retired numbers that hang in Fenway or in any of the parks around the league. Oh, you know what? No, that number that hangs up around at every stadium around the league for the retirement of the number 42, we're just going to take that down for every spot in the league. We're going to turn that into an advertisement. He only played for the Dodgers, so we can just leave it there and take it down for everybody else.
I mean, and there's no, and in a way, it's even worse because the man was a philanthropist. Like he died helping people. He was. Like he died. Like, and you can't leave the sign and move your stupid advertisement to the right or the left of it. Like you like, and this is
above it, below it. Like there were so many options. And I can understand. Ultimately, they're a business. They're going to do what they think is best for the business.
But I don't think this guy knows. This guy is from Wheeling, West Virginia. I looked up Mr. Nutting. Stupid name. He sounds like a Looney Tunes villain. Bob Nutting. Well, like what kind of name is that? Like what culture is that even from? Of the Nutting clan. Get out of here, Nuttings. We kicked you out eons ago. But anyway, he's from Wheeling, West Virginia, and he grew up in a privileged life, and he went to college in Massachusetts. He has no ties to Pittsburgh. He doesn't know anything about the team.
Teams should not be able to be owned by individuals that do not have a tie into the community that the teams are a part of. And I know that that's hard because that may not get us like what Matt Ishbia has done for the Phoenix Suns. Matt Ishbia has no ties to the Phoenix community, but he's done some amazing things since buying the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Suns, including making the games available on local over-the-air TV, dropping concession stand and ticket prices. Like he's trying to make the game family-friendly again. Ken Kendricks has done that at the D-back Stadium, and those are great things. But there should be a tie into the community as part of that because you are an ambassador of your community as a professional sports organization. So this isn't just about the Pirates. This is about like the Red Sox. do work tirelessly in their community. One of the reasons why John Sherman has not wanted to invest so much in his roster is that the Red Sox have quietly been, or organization has quietly been investing in things that are happening downtown around Fenway as they try to revitalize that neighborhood. Okay. So as much as I give John Sherman shit, I think he's an asshole because I want my team competing. He's tied into that community. John Sherman loves that community. He lives in that community. He wants to do better. The Pirates are not doing that,
but I
in
think,
any sense of the word.
I think if you buy any sports team in Pittsburgh is a very unique city. Most
fan bases, your season ends. All right, we didn't do it. That sucks. But, we got spring training coming around the corner, and hopefully we'll get it back. Right. We love our Yankees, but football season's coming around. With Pittsburgh, their sports teams are like their children. And when you play for Pittsburgh, you are part of the community.
Right.
Mario Lemieux is part of the community. Ben Roethlisberger is part of the community. Terry Bradshaw is still part of the community.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that's unique to Pittsburgh. You either buy in or you get out. And this owner does not understand that. He doesn't understand that concept.
It's what baffles me about the owners that don't understand these concepts and they don't buy in like they should for what they're doing is it's not like spending a bunch of money to win 27 titles for the New York Yankees has put them in a position where they don't have a profitable organization. It's a very profitable organization. The Boston Red Sox have won 4 World Series titles in the last 21 years. 4 of them. They're not broke.
And I think a lot of the owners are just out of touch. And it shows. Like, take, for instance, you have the 2 worst neighborhoods in Major League Baseball, if not sports, are Yankee Stadium in the Bronx and Chicago, South Side. What do the Yankees do? What do the Yankees do in their community, though? They invest in it. They have programs that teach kids how to play ball. They invest in the parks around the stadium. What does Reinsdorf do? Absolutely nothing. Complains about the pretty much almost brand new stadium he just got.
Well, and the what confuses me about Reinsdorf is he has no problem being wrapped up in stuff for the Bulls. At least did in the 90s. But when it comes to the White Sox,
it's a myth that he was a good owner, though. Like, everybody knows that. Jerry Krause built that team, and Michael Jordan slipped down to number 3. Michael Jordan doesn't slip down to number 3. You end up with Sam Bowie, and you're selling the team because you suck. I mean, that's just fate reached down in that draft and gave him the best possible hand an owner can get.
Yeah. But again, I go back to criticizing Rob Manfred every time I can because, as we tell our kids to say, fuck Rob Manfred. But a better sports commissioner is at least working more actively behind the scenes to deal with problems that you have with organizations like the White Sox. It's like what the A's are dealing with and transitioning to Vegas, like the Rays are dealing with down in Tampa right now, and solving these issues because you can't. And when you're a struggling professional sport, when it comes to the money that's coming in, the well's going to dry up unless the product gets wet again.
Well,
they're not doing enough because the product is only as good as its weakest part.
and the commissioner needs to know how to make a deal. If Faye Vincent or Peter Uberhoff had this problem in the 80s and 90s, okay, we got 2 stadiums without teams. What are the nearest stadiums? They are not playing in the Yankees spring training stadium. Contact the Glazer family and see if we can convert for a season and see if we can share Tampa Stadium with them. Okay, the A's are having trouble. Their stadium's delayed in Vegas. What can we do there? Contact the Davis family and tell Junior from Problem Child that we need him to accommodate us for a minute. Tell him to give us a number. They don't do that anymore. And the answer is like literally right there. It's right there in front of you.
Well, here's the thing. The only reason that I think that there's a difference now in handling the A's versus what they did with the stadium in Oakland back in the 80s and 90s. And the reason why I think that it's different is because it was a lot easier to make adjustments for that stadium with it being an outdoor stadium than what you have with what they've got in the toilet bowl in Vegas.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the real issue with that. So with them being able to do it there, because I can tell you with the fact that the architects and the systems that are in that stadium being very similar to what's down in Arizona.
I mean, like, even
and I know that for a fact because I've talked to architects on the projects. There is so much similar shit between those 2 stadiums. It would not be easy to convert it.
Even when C-League had the issues with the Expos, I'd say, sorry, St. Petersburg, you got bigger problems than the baseball team not having a stadium. Rebuild. We'll be back next year. They're going to play a season in Montreal. Then that gives you a chance to test the market. You can test the market, see who turns out, and talk about expansion or relocation back to a 3 million people metropolis.
The entire reason Oklahoma City has a basketball team is because of how the numbers drew out when they had the Pelicans in Oklahoma City. Or no, it was the Hornets. Sorry, because it was the Hornets. The Hornets in Oklahoma City for, what was it, 2 years? Because
it's the same Pelicans. They were the Hornets then.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, it was the Hornets then is what it was. But for 2 years, because of the damage to the dome during Katrina.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why you couldn't have some reasonable stuff like that. And I think, honestly, if any team's going to spend a season in Montreal so they can see if the market's ready before they look at expansion, because I think it's coming. You send the A's up there for 1 or 2 years while they get the stadium worked out. They have a fresh stadium in Montreal that they just want a team to use it. So you're going to get what you want. You can test out the market. And the A's don't exactly have the best reputation in Southern California right now. So that organization not being in that area is not exactly the end of the world.
Or you can go. I don't even understand why the A's didn't do what they did in the mid-90s and play in the Superdome. Well, when an earthquake hurt their stadium, they played in the Superdome. New Orleans said, "All right, come in."
There's no reason why they should. And this is my thing with the A's, and I wanted to talk about this, and we kind of led into it naturally eventually. There is absolutely no reason that the A's should be playing in a ballpark where there is not a bathroom in the dugout for the players to use. Because since you can't put players back into a game, if somebody has an emergency and they don't make it back in time, they're out for the game because you have to replace them. So they're out for the game. And I don't think that's right because that puts visiting teams at a supreme disadvantage because they're not used to that. The league needs to do something about that.
It's not even what you said is very logical and it is true, but it's not even that far. These guys are professional ball players. This is a professional baseball organization. And and I really wish Craig was here for this conversation. Hopefully he'll have some to add next week. You're having press conferences in the gardening shed? You're having, you there's no bathroom. You're doing everything you possibly can to prevent anyone worth picking up a baseball from signing with your organization.
100%. No, like it's so bad for it's just so bad for the brand of baseball. And this is why I'm so critical of A's ownership, and I'm so willing to side with what Debbie was saying about some of this, a large chunk of this falling on A's ownership. I understand the city of Oakland bears some blame in what's going on between the A's and the city of Oakland and the A's leaving. And I'm not going to try and mince words on that. I do think the city of Oakland does hold some blame. However, the A's organization decided 15 years ago they were moving. It was just a matter of when.
As soon as Lou Wolf sold the team, because Lou Wolf really wanted to stay, and when he knew he wasn't getting a stadium, and he bailed. But as soon as
that was about 20 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he was trying, and they kept giving him the environmental impact study explanation, and he was just like, "I can't do this. I'm out. Like I'm not playing this game for the 5th straight year. I want an answer." And
no, I feel you, and that's the frustrating part, man. Is to see in a very important member of the league. Like there's a lot of history from the league that comes through that organization.
That A I was reading, I think that's the oldest active hat emblem in the history of sport.
Yep.
Like it's the oldest logo. It dates back to like 1870. It's been in continuous use ever since.
It's crazy. Like despite all the cities they've moved to, they were in Kansas City for a while. It's still the same logo.
And I can't help but think if Connie Mack had his estate in better shape in the 50s and his kids weren't squabbling and fighting, would we be saying the same thing about the Phillies instead of the A's? Because Philly loved them, but there was a lot of infighting and they started losing ground because they couldn't invest in the team because they were too busy suing each other.
Right. I mean, it's possible, but I mean, yeah, that one's really hard. I mean, that goes back even farther. But is Philly still today the type of town that can hold 2 teams?
I think the enthusiasm's definitely there, but they have to be 2 really good teams.
And that's because with the fact, and that's where my question mark comes into, because even like the Phillies struggle to get support, and they're not like a top tier team, but they're usually pretty consistently above average. I mean, even for the seasons they got carried entirely by Bryce Harper, like they were still at least flirting with a wild card seat. The Phillies haven't had a year like we see out of teams like the A's and the Rockies and the Marlins and stuff like that. So that, I mean, and they struggle to get support. I think that as
Philly is such a weird city. Philly is.
I think what it is as the steel age transitioned to the technological age, we saw a lot of those steel jobs get automated. That's what really hurt the city of Philly, right? That's when we started to see kind of an economic downturn, and that was like the 60s and 70s, as the tech boom was starting to happen. I think that's when Philly's time to be able to have 2 baseball teams or 2 teams of any sport ended because of the change in the culture in that city that has slowly gone through, because it's so hard to deal with, there's a lot of sectors, a lot of areas of Philly that are hard up because of that technological boom and all the jobs that it took with it.
Well, there were a lot of factors at hand. I mean, because you got to realize up until the 50s, the westernmost team was St. Louis. So you had 2 teams in St. Louis, 3 teams in New York, 2 teams in Boston, 2 teams in Philadelphia. Was there another 2-team city I'm missing there? I'm trying to think. St. Louis, Philly, Boston, New York. Yeah, I mean, but you had and
Kansas City.
Kansas City didn't have a major league team until the A's moved.
The Monarchs. Well, no, because that was a Negro League team.
Yeah.
The A's. And when did the Royals start?
A year after the A's moved.
Okay. So yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. Maybe you're right. Okay.
Yeah, but what happened was Western expansion. Pretty much, it all got started by O'Malley. Like it was Walter O'Malley started it all, you know. And then I guess technically Washington and Baltimore share a market. I guess if you want to say that, but that happened later. And these teams, because you had the Braves were relatively successful, but for whatever reason, people loved the Red Sox, and there was nothing the Braves could do about it. I mean, if you look at
the city just chose that brand for some reason, just latched onto that, and I think some of it could do with so much of the history, like Ted Williams and El Tiante, and just there was so much history that when it came time for the Braves to decide. Because like the Braves had tried to even rebrand for a little while. They were the Bees for like 2 years.
Yeah, they were the Bees, and they called their stadium the Beehive or some stupid shit.
Yeah, like Boston is big enough for 2, but nobody gave a shit about the second team. It was just Boston was so locked in on the Red Sox. That's such a cultural piece. Like I work in sales. Like when I talk to insurance customers in Boston, I almost always mention the Red Sox because I know that they at least know who they are. It's a common thing that people there know to talk about just because of how common it is in the culture. Even with all the success of the Patriots aren't even as locked in New England culture as the Red Sox are.
Maybe the Bruins give them a run for their money.
Okay, yeah, just because of the Northwest, the Northeast in hockey. So like I could say like. For hockey, the Bruins definitely are going to be closer, but it's the Sox.
But I mean, and it comes down to business. I mean, Boston was building teams, so we're still making World Series. When the Braves lost their original owner, and they did that stupid thing where they named the team the Bees, and then you had this guy and that guy, and then they had Babe Ruth taking taxi cabs to first base on a walk, and they became a parody of themselves. It wasn't like it went from like Rabbit Moranville and the Miracle Braves to what is this?
But I mean the league, the entire game was going through a transition at that point when the Braves moved, when they went, they went to being the Braves and moved down to Atlanta. There was so much transition period in the game at that point too.
Now the one interesting one. Oh, sorry. What were you going to say? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, I was going to say, but that was a move that was out of necessity because that organization wouldn't have survived in Boston.
Now, the one move that is very interesting if you read about it, because it was like the team that stayed got saved at the 11th hour, was St. Louis, because Bill Veeck bought the Browns. And he was inches away from forcing the Cardinals out. He owned the stadium. He just dumped on them. And as fate would have it, the Cardinals were ready to relocate. Their owner gets arrested for tax evasion. And the Bush family steps in with resources that Bill Veeck couldn't compete with. So the Browns ended up moving to Baltimore. It was like one of those things where you're watching wrestling and you're like, this guy's going to win. And it's like, "Oh no, King, we forgot about the." Like, and then the guy just comes out, like, gives him the
Yeah.
stutter.
Okay. Yeah, I feel you. That makes sense.
And like, oh god, it was like, and it's like, wow, like that's gotta suck, because after that, like, the Cardinals were just, they became the Cardinals, and it was Beck had to sell the stadium to the team, so he became a tenant in his own stadium. He ended up living under the bleachers. He had an apartment under the bleachers.
I think I've seen pictures of that.
And it was like, I'm sure Craig will tell you, there's a really good book that was written, his autobiography, called Vec is in Wreck. And he's one of the most, like, interesting owners from that era that you'll ever see. Like, he was responsible for giving the brick wall the ivy at Wrigley Field.
I've heard some stories about him now that you mention it. And just that triggered, you mentioned that triggered some stuff. Like, I've seen a couple of documentaries where he gets mentioned, and he had a huge impact in baseball in, like, what was it, like the 40s and the 50s and the 60s?
He was the guy, like, when you go to it's like dollar hot dog night, he was the guy that started all that.
Yeah.
He was the guy that he was a showman. I mean, the other owners hated him so much because he would just do whatever he wanted. He signed a little person, gave him a jersey with the number 7/8 on it, and sent him up to bat to draw a walk. There's a picture of it. The guy's name is Eddie Goodell. And then, like, he looks like a little kid, and he's got, like, a toy bat. And he's standing there, and the catcher on his knees is, like, taller than him.
That's funny. Oh, man. Oh, man. Well, we've been running for almost an hour and a half. Well, we want to thank everybody for checking us out this week. Unfortunately, Erica and Craig couldn't make it, but we'll have them with us next week. Hopefully, we'll get closer to getting to our regular format and what we're going to be doing with this show. You can reach out to us on our Facebook page, but it's called Podcast Name Deferred, and reach out to us with topic ideas, things you think it'd be interesting for us to talk about. You got any great plays you want to see us talk about or anything like that, reach out to us. We're happy to get feedback and, share what the community wants us to, talk about.
We're history buffs too. Bring up some factoids we can talk about. I'd love to do
absolutely.
that.
You can catch John and I Monday nights, Sports Report podcast. And other than that, we'll see you next week. A big shout out. Thank you to Wire to Wire Sports for having us be a part of their network. Don't forget to check out Wire to Wire's pages and all of the shows that they do there because they have a wonderful lineup with talented individuals topping various topics, and they would appreciate your support as much as we do. For everybody here at Wire to Wire Supports and for my co-host John Ambrose, we thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next week right here on Podcast Name Deferred.